So one of the first things we want to do in setting up Couchbase and Elasticsearch together is to install Elasticsearch. I do recommend, if you're using a Mac, if you've already installed Elasticsearch before, just make sure that we've got a version match, or just uninstall them all and restart, unless you're using it for another application. But you're going to want to make sure that you match up our plugin with the correct version of the Elasticsearch that you're running. I'm going to install this specific version, 90.5, which is what has been tested against with our plugin. I think the current version is actually 90.7, a couple micro versions ahead. But I'm just going to go ahead and stick with 90.5, and I'll show how to do that. So first I want to do a brew update and make sure all my formulas are current. That's just general good practice. And then I'm going to actually install a specific version, and I actually have some notes in a gist here that I'll provide a link to at the end on the slide, so that you can see kind of instructions kind of laid out here. So I'm going to do a specific version here, so brew update. So if you're on other Linux systems, you're just going to actually download the 90.5 and install it. Some of the folders in it will be maybe a little different. It'll vary in terms of where the plugin folder is, the bin folder, and things like that. But for the most part, it's relatively the same all the way around, as long as you know what the folders are. So what we're going to do is brew list, or brew versions, Elasticsearch. Let me go ahead and grab 90.5 here. So here we've got the version for 90.5, and I'm going to go to my user local and go ahead and paste that in, and then I just do a brew install Elasticsearch. Basically, I overrode the updated formula with the from the newest version with this, and there we go. I've installed it. That's because it was already downloaded. So there we go, it's installed. Some of these folders are kind of important to remember. We're going to be using them. Here's the plugins folder we'll use. And also what it doesn't list is where it was installed. But actually that's it right here, right? The user local seller. And we're going to go there because we're going to actually set up some things there. We're going to add some information to the settings YAML file, the Elasticsearch YAML file in config, and we're going to install plugins. So let's go there and see if you do a brew info Elasticsearch. I don't think it lists the folder was installed to. Oh yeah, it does. It's up here. Okay. Anyway, so let's go to first, let's install the plugins, and that's really easy to do. I'm going to actually copy it from here. This is for the Couchbase Elasticsearch transport. Alright, boom, it's installed. And then there's this, Elasticsearch head is kind of like a browser-based Elasticsearch interface for looking at Elasticsearch and kind of browsing around and playing with it. The plugin version, there's a standalone version and there's a plugin version. The plugin version is fine when you have just a single cluster you're looking at, and the standalone is better if you have multiple instances or clusters of Elasticsearch and you just want to use a single web interface to kind of browse them all. But I'm just going to use the plugin one. Let's install that one too. Alright, so now I need to do some config. So I'm going to go to the config folder here, and I'm going to open up the Elasticsearch YAML. And at the bottom, I'm going to add some settings. Since I am on Mac, I'm going to also have a setting in here that you would not do in Linux. This num vbuckets. On Mac, we set it to 64 because the file descriptor limits by the default file descriptor limits in OS X. Of course, I've overridden mine, and I have commands in this gist for how you override and increase the defaults. For some reason, it's pretty low. We're going to use this port. This password can be any password you want, in the user too, actually. Both these can be anything you want. I just use the same thing as my local Couchbase instance. And we have this max concurrent request 1024. So I'm going to save this settings, this elasticsearch.yaml file. Now it has that settings in there. And then I need to copy over a template. So let's look at this folder. What I'm going to do is actually, there's two ways of doing it. You can actually curl the template in with an xput, but I like this method better. I'm in the config, I'm going to make a folder called templates, and Elasticsearch will recognize this template subfolder and automatically put the template file into Elasticsearch on start, any files that are in here. So I think that this is just kind of more convenient than xputting. So if you remember, we had the plugins folder. Within our transport Couchbase plugin, we have like a JSON file, which is a template, like kind of a standard template. You can modify this yourself, but we include a template. So I can't remember the name of that folder, so I'm going to go ahead and brew info. It tells me where the folders are. And let's go ahead and copy transport Couchbase. So I pasted that folder in, and then I started adding more to it to get to the actual file Couchbase _template.json. I'm going to copy it here to my config/templates folder. So now I've got the this sort of default template for Couchbase documents. So, and then I think I'm good to go. I installed the plugins. I installed the template. I put in the YAML settings. Looks like I'm good to go. So I want to start it. Oops. And again, I'm just putting this information up. So I forgot how to start it. You can do it manually too, but I'm gonna do it explicitly here. All right. So I'm gonna unload in case it was already started, and reload. And I should have it running. Boom. Okay, so 9200 is the default port for Elasticsearch, so now it's running, which you can also see in your browser. All right. This one is called Bruce Banner. All right, we're in Incredible Hulk here. So if you want to see the plugin, the Elasticsearch head plugin, it's 9200/_plugin/head. And there we go, we've got an index. Now there's two ways, we've got Elasticsearch set up. So there's two ways to create a new index. You can do it through curl with an xput, or you can just do it right here. I'm going to call this xdcr to match my xdcr bucket that I've put a whole bunch of random user data in. Okay, now I have an xdcr index in Elasticsearch, but bucket index. All right, so now I'm ready to actually set it up with Couchbase. So here's my Couchbase console. I'm going to go to XDCR. I'm going to create a cluster reference. In this case, I'm going to call this Elasticsearch. And this is going to be, the port is going to be from this Elasticsearch.yaml. We set up a port here, 9091, that it's going to be running on. So we're going to do 127.0.01 port 9091, and the username and password are also from that file. An administrator, and I just use the same one as my cluster actually, because it's all local. I don't really care. So, I had a replication to my MacBook, but I think I deleted that bucket and stuff on the MacBook. That's just a regular XDCR from the other demo. So let's go ahead and delete this. I don't need that anymore. I guess I can leave the reference. No, let's delete the reference too. Okay, so here we're just looking at, so I created that cluster reference. Of course, this IP and port can be different if you use a different port in the YAML file, or if it's on another server, you put in that IP there. So now I want to create a replication on this cluster. I'm going to pick my XDCR bucket and then an ES. It says bucket, but it's an index, so index bucket. One thing that's important here is in here, I want to do the version 1 of XDCR protocol, not version 2. And in our docs we said put this to 8, so I'm going to put it to 8 because it said 2. I don't know if it'll matter on my local machine, but so I will go ahead and get that. So it's starting up, and let's go quickly over here, and let's change this refresh to refresh quickly. Oh, it's almost done. Oh no, it's half done. So it is now sending all this stuff to Elasticsearch, and it's boom, it's indexed. I can go ahead and change it to every 5 seconds. So we saw that was really fast, but there's about 23,000 documents just got sent here. So boom, it's indexed. So now I can try and do a kind of a query here. So here are all these random users from the Ruby Faker gem. And I guess this is sorting. Oh, look at that. How about that? Oh, this is a pretty nice browser. So I can actually sort here in the interface, or filter. Let's just try and... The name is no... Oh, maybe I can't do both at the same as trying to and them. Let's see here. I actually haven't played with this one. I was actually playing with the structured query, and then here you can actually put in like your own JSON query. If you're familiar with Elasticsearch, this is where you could put in your sort of custom queries and do a post. I kind of like this though. This interface is pretty cool. So it doesn't like uppercase letters, but it does do a pretty good job of filtering. So in this case, I filtered down to Ludwig S and got this user. This ID here is the document ID, but if you look at the structure here of the documents, and some of this came from the template. We've got this source document here, and then there's a doc parameter and a meta parameter for the source. This is what is getting indexed here. And it does use the underscore ID at the root of this JSON is the meta ID from the document. So it kind of copies that over. And when you do a query, you're going to be using these IDs to do multi-gets from Couchbase. Let's show a few useful links. We'll include that in the follow-up email as well. But these links are a little bit long, but what we've got here is the Elasticsearch install and configure gist that I wrote up. And then we have the Elasticsearch transport plugin GitHub repo. And there are some instructions there in the README that complement the docs. I mean, pretty much it's the same information in both places. It does talk about install on other systems a little bit. The Elasticsearch head plugin repo, if you want to install the standalone, you can look at the instructions there for doing that with it's basically using Node.js and Grunt. Then we have our Couchbase Elasticsearch documentation, which also outlines very similar information to my own gist. I just had a few things that I added for macOS in particular with Homebrew, which is not in there, so I included that as well. And we'll include these links in the follow-up email. And so that concludes our demo.